What is going on, YouTube? Welcome back. I want to thank everyone that hit the like button on my top 10 most underrated prospects in the 2020 NFL Draft. In turn, thanking you guys for hitting that like button, which I hope you do on this one as well, because it really does help out. We have the top 10 most likely players to bust, or the top 10 most overrated players. And I mentioned this on Twitter. I actually woke up in a really good mood today, and it kind of put me down having to make a video like this, because ultimately what I'm doing is trashing these guys, and I have nothing against them on a personal level. And ultimately, I hope that they prove me wrong and turn into all-pro players, and we can come back and laugh at me. I really hope they prove me wrong. But as a draft analyst, every year there's players that go too early, that are busts, that are reaches, that just don't work out. And these are the guys just kind of playing the odds based on my evaluations, what people are saying, guys that I think are overrated, overhyped, that have a decent chance of disappointing the fans of the teams that take these players. So just going to preface it with that. Let's get into it. Number 10, Lloyd Cushenberry. And I just don't fully understand it with this guy. I get it. He played in the SEC, a 2-year starter at LSU. Did have a pretty good, I guess he's a junior redshirt coming out, so technically his sophomore year, but his third year in college. Anyway, he was fine that year, but honestly was kind of a liability for that offensive line. Joe Burrow kind of running for his life a lot, frankly. Him and Shadiq Charles, another player in this class that just aren't that good, but young offensive line prospects. And I got my center evals done, I think slightly ahead of the game, and I had a 6th round grade on Lloyd Cushenberry. He got absolutely manhandled by Derek Brown, who is one of the better players, but that's the type of athlete he's going to see in the NFL. Didn't really have any dominant games at LSU in his final season. I think he's just a guy at center, honestly. Like, he doesn't have great anchoring power. He's a good athlete, but at the center position, like, that only gets you so far. It's not like he's pulling on every play. I don't know. I'm just not super excited by Lloyd Cushenberry. He could turn into a starting caliber guy, but I just don't really see it myself. And it's a guy that's getting 2nd round buzz. There's a lot of other centers in this class like Matt Hennessy, Nick Harris, who are better athletes. Like, if you're taking those guys that can really move block well but might struggle to anchor, Lloyd Cushenberry isn't the guy. So I've got a 6th round grade on Lloyd Cushenberry, and I think he's going to get way overdrafted. Then number 9 here, Cam Akers, running back out of Florida State, and the hype was insane for this guy during Combine Week. Rightfully so. He is a very good athlete, one of the best athletes in this running back group. He is the former number 1 running back in his high school class, went to Florida State and just didn't really produce. And I do agree his offensive line at Florida State was not all that good. That team was kind of in shambles. But newsflash, Cam Akers isn't the only running back that played behind a poor offensive line in this draft. And there was just a severe lack of vision, playmaking. He has some big highlights where he shows that athleticism, the ability to make guys miss, but far too often I didn't see him hitting holes that he should have, and I didn't see him shaking guys that I expect from a 2nd or 3rd round running back that is the discussion for Cam Akers. My comp for him is Marlon Mack. So I don't think he's a bad player. If he ends up in the right spot, I think he can be a starting caliber running back, and I do have him as my 7th running back in this class. But to me, he's much, much closer to like Darrington Evans, Anthony McFarland, JaMycal Hasty out of Baylor, who are all almost equally, some of them even better athletes than Cam Akers that had that same sort of lack of production as he did at Florida State. So I'm looking 4th, 5th round. He could have a Marlon Mack style career, who's a good NFL running back. But if you're taking him in the 2nd round, early 3rd round, where he's being projected, it reminds me a lot of Ronald Jones, who generated a ton of hype coming out of USC years ago, who had sort of similar flaws in his game. Then number 8, Jalen Hurts. This one really became easy because in recent weeks I've seen, I'm not going to name names, but respected analysts pushing him up into the 1st round, into their top 5 quarterbacks. I don't get it. I really don't get it. I'm like speechless, because before the Senior Bowl, I went down there to Mobile. I had him as my 16th quarterback in this class. Basically, all of his good plays are either like really scripted, easy reads where it's basically just Lincoln Riley and the Oklahoma machine, or he's kind of off platform and outside the pocket, dancing around, kind of doing the Russell Wilson, Deshaun Watson thing that is really exciting and fun to watch. But you need to have sort of that anticipation, the ability to process defenses. I saw none of it, and just general throw-to-throw accuracy from Jalen Hurts. Now, I get it. You want to gamble on the intangibles. You want to gamble on the fact that he has improved his throwing motion. He actually was throwing the ball pretty accurately, both in Mobile and at the Combine, but that's throwing against air, not against NFL defenses. So I will admit, I have risen on Jalen Hurts. I was making jokes in December about him being a running back after some of his latest college games. Seeing some of the work he's put into his mechanics and stuff does have me intrigued, but as a 5th round flyer on an athlete that might be able to figure out some things at quarterback, not a 1st round pick, not a 2nd, 3rd round pick, that you're actually putting pretty serious investment into this guy becoming a player for you. I mean, you should view this guy as you're adding Taysom Hill to your team, who maybe you do some cool packages, but he needs to wait 2-3 years before you even try him at quarterback. So that's where I'm at on Jalen Hurts. I think he's going to get really overdrafted, and I think he's just, in general, extremely overhyped. Then we have Zach Baun at number 7. He is an edge outside linebacker hybrid out of Wisconsin. And I need to clarify, I like Zach Baun as a player, but I've been burned far too many times by these undersized edge rushers that I really like coming out. Hassan Reddick, Tyus Bowser, Sutton Smith, and Jamal Davis. Under 6'3" and under 240 pounds, those can be red flags at edge rusher, and Zach Baun is both of them. It's a real thing. It's not just, oh, he's undersized, there's not other guys like it. Being a really good edge rusher at the NFL level requires power. It requires length, the ability to get your hands inside, use long arms to separate yourself if you are going to be a speed guy, get your hands inside if you're going to be a power guy. It's a real thing. When you're a smaller guy, it is not easy to be an efficient pass rusher. That is why Zach Baun most likely will be making the conversion to an off-ball linebacker. And if that's the case, what separates him from some of these raw athletes in the 3rd round? Guys like Davian Taylor, Akeem Davis-Gether, converted safety linebacker guys like Jeremy Chin, Khaleke Hudson out of Michigan. You know, it's teaching an athlete to learn a new position. That's not something you spend a 1st round pick on. Now, I will say, this changes if you're one of 4 teams in the league. The Miami Dolphins, the New England Patriots, the Detroit Lions, and the New York Giants, who run the Belichickian tree hybrid multiple defense where Zach Baun can be the perfect fit. If you're one of those 4 teams, you might have a 1st round grade on him, and I understand it. In the Jamie Collins, Kyle Van Noy role, Dante Hightower as that hybrid pass rushing cover linebacker, can do a little bit of everything. I can get behind him there. But if you're a team like Baltimore, taking him in the 1st round to convert him to middle linebacker, or if you're taking him to play a true edge rushing role, I'm not on board with him as a top 50 player in the class like a lot of people have him. Then number 6, Tua Tagovailoa. For those that have followed me, no surprise here. Before the hip injury, I was just not on board with Tua as this elite can't-miss quarterback prospect. Yeah, he's really accurate. He's got a quick release. He can throw off platform. He also is executing a 7-on-7 clinic at Alabama with all day to throw. How do you separate the thousands of yards on his season that came from throwing slants and RPOs and those receivers making ridiculous plays and catches for him from what he actually brings to the table? It's very difficult. I question how he is in the red zone under pressure. I also question his 3rd down playmaking instincts, the same things we've criticized Derek Carr and Marcus Mariota for. Knowing when and how to use your feet, when to run, when not to check down, and when to create big plays. I have questions about all of those things with Tua. And then you add the injury concern to this. Look, I think he's a really good quarterback prospect. I dare even say a great quarterback prospect because I still have a 1st round grade on him despite the injury stuff. But people are treating this guy like the second coming of Jesus Christ as a quarterback prospect, and it blows my mind. I don't understand it. I've heard well-respected draft analysts say if it wasn't for the injury concerns, he's on the same page as Joe Burrow, which is just insane to me because I don't get it from watching him play. What does he do that really impresses you that much to say that? I think if he stays healthy, which is a massive if, he hasn't been able to do it in 3 college seasons. Usually when guys get hurt in college, it repeats in the NFL. But if he stays healthy, I see him as a Baker Mayfield, a Jimmy Garoppolo, a really good quarterback with good skills, but I don't see him as this elite, high-end, do-it-all quarterback. I just don't. So I think there's some major red flags with Tua. He's gonna get picked in the top 3 or 5 picks. And I think while he could be a good pick, there are plenty of reasons that are not being discussed enough as to why he could be a pretty big disappointment. Then number 5, this one's much easier than Tua, Mekhi Becton. To me, it's very clear. You're drafting this guy for size. Everyone freaked out about his 5'10" 40 time. Just look at the other 40 times amidst the top 10 offensive linemen in the class. He's in the bottom half of those guys. So yeah, he is massive. But I throw on his tape, he's slow to get off the ball. He's slow to get to spots on outside zone schemes. Add on top of that a general lack of awareness in his 3rd year, not picking up stunts, not knowing just in general who to block on run blocks, looking lost in space. You are taking a gamble on size, something that the Ravens were rewarded for Orlando Brown, a very similar prospect, in the 3rd round, not in the top 10. I do like Mekhi Becton. He actually has a really high floor as a pass blocker because of that length. He's got relatively quick feet in his drops, but to project him as this elite top 10 tackle prospect amidst a tackle class with some of the better tackle prospects in the last 5 years, guys like Andrew Thomas, Jedrick Wills, Tristan Wirfs. I even like Matt Pert better than Mekhi Becton on a technical standpoint. I just can't get on board with that. And I think that whoever drafts Mekhi Becton might look back in 2 years and say, yeah, he's pretty steady, but I'd much rather have one of these all-pro tackles that went after we took Mekhi Becton. Then number 4, Denzel Mims. Simply put, the train's left the station, guys. I had a 3rd to a 4th round grade on Denzel Mims. In Mobile, he made some nice plays. He beat up on day 3 corners that were down there in Mobile. So did KJ Hill and Justin Jefferson, a bunch of other receivers that were down there. If you weren't winning drills, you kind of get put off the radar because the corners there were just simply worse than the receivers that were there in Mobile. Then he comes out and runs a 4.38. Awesome. Let's give him some respect. Let's push him up from that 3rd, 4th round spot into the 2nd, early 3rd. He's a lock 1st round prospect all of a sudden? Not for me. I think there's a serious bust potential if you take this guy with the expectations that he's going to come in this receiving class nonetheless and be this true number 1 dominant threat. He was at Baylor for 4 years. He didn't really pick it up until his final season, and even in that last year made some great highlight plays, but didn't show it on a consistent basis. He had drops, and the route running and just separation, it doesn't match his 4.38 speed for me. I'm not expecting him to come in day 1 and be this elite separator. So I like him. He's in my top 10. I think he's worth a 2nd round pick. The upside's very clear, but I feel like people are kind of chasing DK Metcalf here with Mims is just simply put not on DK Metcalf's level. And I think the train is kind of gone off the rails here with Denzel Mims. Then number 3, Jalen Reagor. I've never been on board this one. He's a speed threat. He's like a Marquise Goodwin. I just don't really understand this one as a 1st round prospect. I get it. People are chasing speed. They want that Tyreek Hill in their offense. For one, he doesn't have that speed. I know he put out this weird pro day video. That's the other thing. I just get weird vibes with Jalen Reagor. Sometimes you got to trust your gut on this stuff. Where was the development? Why didn't you get better? Why didn't you run real routes in your final year at TCU and we're still just running screens and contributing as a kick returner? Why did you put on an extra 15 pounds of weight and then run it like close to a 4.5 at the combine? Why did you put out this sketchy pro day video claiming that you ran a 4.24 when the guy that is in that video on the stopwatch, when you're showing the video at this weird angle where you can't see the starting or finish line, the guy clearly presses start after you've begun? Like, I just get weird vibes with Jalen Reagor, like an unprofessional vibe with this guy. And it really rubs me the wrong way. And his tape backs all that up. He's just not a refined receiver at all. I've got a 4th round grade on him. People are projecting him in the 1st round. And I just don't see it. So, yeah, I've got a bust red flag on Jalen Reagor. I hope he proves me wrong, though. Then number 2, Brandon Aiyuk. I watched him play a lot at Arizona State, and he's a good football player. I've got a 3rd round grade on him. My comp for him is Nelson Aguilar, and I think it's a perfect comp. He's a really good run after catch threat, has some drop issues, runs slants, crossers, screens, bubbles, that kind of stuff. You know, can occasionally go vertical and make some nice catches, but not a refined route runner, not a consistent hands guy. He's a fine player. Like, he can be a starting number 3 guy. But in this wide receiver class, this guy's getting 1st round draft hype. I've got a 3rd round grade on him. I think he could be a starting kind of 3rd slot option. He could be Nelson Aguilar. I just don't really understand what he does that justifies this elite hype. Then number 1, Justin Herbert. This one was clear. I mean, has there been a more obvious bust? Like, the rest of these 9 guys, I could absolutely see being quality starters. Even Jalen Hurts. Justin Herbert, to me, it's how many times are we going to do this? A guy just doesn't develop, and he, is just this strong arm, tall, prototype quarterback, but comes in and, goes through the process, throws against air super well, but when you dial up the tape, the guy is clueless as to what he's doing with the football, a total first-read quarterback, threw more screens than any quarterback in the history of college football, throws with virtually no anticipation, makes bad decisions, isn't a consistent playmaker. His accuracy, for the most part is pretty good, but when he misses, he really misses. It just screams from the rooftops. Mitch Trubisky, Blake Bortles, Blaine Gabbert, the list goes on and on. We've seen these guys year after year after year, and yet again we're sitting here in 2020 in the age of technology. Every little finger is pointing towards bust, 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 yet some GM, some poor soul is going to lose their job over drafting Justin Herbert in the top 5, top 6. So that's why he's number 1. I feel very confident. It's not just a historically based decision on this guy. It's also a gut feeling. I just don't have a very good feeling about Justin Herbert. I've watched him play so many college games, and he always felt like there was something missing. So Justin Herbert is my number 1 most likely to bust player in this class, as I'm sure he is for a lot of people. So that's my list. You guys are going to disagree with a lot of these players. That's fine. That's the beauty of the draft season. Let's keep it respectful in the comments down below. Please do hit that like button as well. We are a week away from the draft. I do hope you guys consider joining me here on YouTube on draft night for my live reactions and analysis stream. You got a lot of options out there, but I do hope you consider joining me. So that's it. Cheers, guys. We'll see you for the next one. Peace.